Hey friends, welcome back to the On Adventure podcast. I'm Josh Self and I'll be your host. Today's episode, I'm sitting down with the incredible Mike Wardian. He's an elite endurance athlete, an adventure seeker, and all-around inspiring human. From running across the United States like Forrest Gump to setting the fastest known time on the Appalachian Trail for his age group, Mike's done things most of us would never dream of even attempting. But what really stands out in our conversation isn't his athletic accomplishments, it's his mindset. Mike's got this mix of humility and intensity at the same time that's really rare. We talk about setting audacious goals, what drives him to chase the next big adventure, and how he balances his passion for pushing limits with, he's got a day job and a family life too. Whether you're training for your next race or just curious about what it takes to row solo across the Atlantic, yep, that's on his list too. This one's packed with nuggets all the way to the end. So let's get into it. All right, Mike Wardian, welcome to the On Adventure podcast. I have to say, and I didn't say this to you when we first got on here, but I'm really kind of blown away and appreciate that you responded to my cold reach out to offer to come on the podcast, and extremely accessible and humble of you to be willing to do that for somebody that you've never met before. But I am excited to have this conversation with you and talk about some of the recent things that you've done, but also kind of the totality of what you've done over the years of all the running and adventures that you've pursued. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It'll be a fun conversation, and happy to talk about whatever you're interested in.
Cool. So one of the things that I have read about you is that makes you unique is the volume of races and the volume of running specifically that you do. Would you mind talking a little bit about kind of your selection process for how you decide what you're going to pursue and how do you train for that?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm at my desk right now. And so each year I make like a little Post-it note with things that I want to do for the year. So this is
that's super high tech right there.
Yeah, it's very high tech, but this was last year's goal list. This year's goal list is up here. But a lot of these things, if I don't get it one year, they just roll to the next year. But it was last year I ran the Appalachian Trail, which we were just talking about. And the goal was 50 days. I actually ended up in 60 days. Set the 50K American record. I did that earlier this year, run a sub 230 marathon. I just ran 237 last weekend, set up Forrest Gump world record. I just did that earlier in March of this year. Bench 175 pounds. I am not close to that at all right now. 15 pull-ups, not close to that either. One muscle up, not close to that. Win a 4.0 singles, I did do that. Win a 4.5 doubles in pickleball, I did not do that. Gain 100 points in chess rating, I did do that. One muscle up, I am not close on that. So I just try to make a list of things that I want to do, and then I try to figure out, how I'm going to get them done.
That's every January? Are those New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So it's each year I come up with a list of things that I want to try to accomplish, and then figure out how I'm going to go about doing it. I have some longer term goals. Right now I signed up to row across the Atlantic Ocean in 2027.
Oh my.
So I'm starting to, I've started taking the classes that I need to do, but then I have to do 240 hours of training for that on the water on top of the just regular erging. So I'm working on that, and then I'm trying to figure out how I can run the Pacific Crest Trail in 2026. So
that would be sweet.
So I have these bigger projects, and then right now the end of the year goal is I just ran the Baltimore Marathon last weekend in 2:37:32. And then I'm running the Marine Corps Marathon this weekend. And then next weekend, I'm pacing an autistic athlete at the New York City Marathon, my buddy Dylan. And then I'm going to try for the 50-mile American record at the Tunnel Hill 50 and 100 miler. So that's kind of what I have coming up the next couple of weeks. And then my buddies and I are organizing a Taco Bell 50K. So that's going to be...
What is that?
Yeah. Oh, if you've never heard of it, there's a cool one that they've done in Denver where you run to, I think they go to 10 Taco Bells and you have to eat food at 9 of them. I think we're going to 9 of them. And so we've just set up the Taco Bell 50K here in DC for November 29th. So yeah, I think we have to go to 9 Taco Bells, and you have to eat a Taco Bell item at each one. And by the 8th stop, you have to eat a burrito or a Nacho Grande Supreme. Drinks don't count as food. You got to keep all your receipts so we can
Do you have
see
to
what.
keep it down?
Yes, you have to keep it down, and you can't. There's no on-course Pepto, Alka, Seltzer, Pepsid, Malanta is not allowed.
Oh, my stomach's already hurting just thinking about that.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be pretty
That's
funny. So
intense.
so I've done some of these challenges, but yeah, like trying to keep it serious but also fun at the same time. So yeah, and just have there's a really cool event called the Full Ham Triathlon that's coming up in December, and that's on my list too. So that's where you row 10K on the rowing erg, run 10K, and then there's these famous stairs from the movie The Exorcist. So you do that 30 times. It usually takes about hour 40 to 2 hours. So the first time I did it, I was like 6th, then I was 3rd, then I think 2nd. So I've been trying to win it for a couple of years, but I usually have a very big disadvantage to the guys that actually know how to row. So I have to make up a lot of time on the 10K and then the stairs.
So rowing is not really part of your background?
No, not at all. I grew up playing lacrosse and picked up running in college when I stopped playing lacrosse. And so, yeah, I was never a crew guy or never really did much on the water with paddling or anything like that. So
So what
for
made
me,
you go
it's all
from
new.
like not rowing at all to, yeah, let's row across the Atlantic?
I think it's like a natural progression. Like two of my biggest goals were to run across the US and then to run the Appalachian Trail. And I've just in the last 3 years or so been able to do both of those. And I was looking for something that spoke to me like those did, as far as like being like a really big project. I think I'm looking for the self-reliance that it's going to take. I'm also want to do it solo. So like I want to learn the skills that are needed to be able to do it safely and to do it in the manner and in the way that I think would be most challenging to me, but also like the most rewarding. So yeah, so when I've done all my runs, the big runs, like the run across the U.S., I had a support team, and then when I did the Appalachian Trail, I also did that supported. I have done like some big solo projects, like FKTs and whatnot, self-supported, but not like a big project. And so I want to try to see what that feels like to do all the things and be 100% responsible for the results.
That's pretty cool. And so it's more than just a big feat or an adrenaline story. I mean, you have a lot of thought obviously behind it. In general, what would you say keeps you continuing to say yes to these big challenges?
I wouldn't even say to say yes. Like these are like I'm seeking them out, because like saying yes would be like someone invited you to run in the Gobi Desert or something. Like, yeah, I'm looking for the next thing for myself, like the next thing that like kind of gets me butterflies in my stomach and makes me
Hmm.
question like if I can do it or not. And this felt like a good opportunity. This was something that seems so crazy when you say it, but then when you actually talk to people and you learn like, okay, like lots of people do, I mean, not lots of people, but like there are people that do this, like there's organization in place to get it done. And if you do those things, it's like anything, like, it's how do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time, but like that's how it works with these big projects is, yeah, you think of the project, then you commit to the project, and then you work to be able to achieve the thing. But yeah, it's like shockingly scary to me, because like I've never really had that in much experience with everything that I need to learn, but that's also like I'm not afraid to become a beginner again, and then try to learn the skills that are going to be needed to get me safely across the ocean.
Gosh, I mean, that's so many parts of just human life in general, is going back to a beginner's mindset and how that leads to growth in one area or another.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great distinction. I'm glad you said that. The distinction between saying yes to something that approaches you compared to seeking out the challenge. And, so what I hear you describing though is looking for that measure of where you're at. Who am I and what am I able to do? Is that part of what you find out when you do these things, is where the measuring line is for what Mike can accomplish?
I think so. I mean, I think all of us, like anyone that's done any, like I see you have a bunch of medals behind you. So like there's probably the person who you thought you were going to be when you signed up for that event. And then somewhere in the middle of it, like you come to terms with like, is that really me or not? And you have to buckle down and make a decision. So you might be like, oh, I'm a sub 3 hour marathoner, but at mile 18, you're like, ooh, there's no way that I can do this. And I'm going to be happy with a 3:05 and that's good. I did the best I could, and that's just as good as I could do. And so I think a lot of us have a vision for who we are and what we can accomplish, but until you actually step out there and do it, like it's just in your head and it's not real. And
Yeah.
so I think like so many times in races I have had an idea of and been confronted of like who the person that I said I was and who I think I am, and maybe those things are not correct, but it is so cool when you can be like, oh, I am the person that can win 100 miler, or I could be in the front of a professional marathon or something. Like I've done the work to be here, and it legitimizes you and the work that you've done. And I don't know, there's nothing better than that feeling.
That's pretty cool. And now, have you always kind of had this mindset? You said earlier you played lacrosse in college and then got into running after that, but has there been a progression to get you to this point, or have you always been one to seek out really hard things?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always wanted to be the best version of myself, right? So like when I was in high school, I wanted to be an All-American, and I wanted to do the work that I thought you needed to do to have that become a reality. And I did not become an All-American, but I was really one of the best kids in the county, and got recruited to play lacrosse and got to play lacrosse in college. And so like I think like I've always been one to set kind of big audacious goals. And like I mean, I think everyone knows this, but like by setting a goal is like setting your intention. And then like it's kind of like there's like that quote, like aim for the stars and you'll hit the moon or something. But it's kind of like you'll be surprised at how far you can go when you know where you're going. Like, and there's also another quote that I think is good, is like there's no safe harbor if you don't know where you're going, like as a ship. But like
Yeah.
yeah, it's just kind of like setting the intention, and then sometimes you fall short, but that's like so much further than you would have gotten had you not decided to do something. So yeah, so I'm always trying to like get better, and I've always had that mindset that like I want to be the best I can be with what I've with the skills that I've been given, or the body and the mindset.
Yeah, I mean that's a cool way to describe it, and what it seems you're pushing towards something that there's an element of trying to prove to yourself what you're capable of, and that's very different than and you've probably run across people like this, as I have in the running world, that they're running long distances or hard things because they're running away from something. That this is another way to either punish themselves or to just feel removed from whatever the thing is. And that's a very different approach, what you're describing, to seeking out these things. And, for what it's worth, it's probably not worth much. I mean, that seems healthier, right, than going at these distances to subject yourself to more pain and suffering. And so what that tells me, though, is that if this has kind of been your mindset all along, that probably does have roots back further. And I read you're from Morgantown, West Virginia. Is that right?
No, that's where I was born.
You're born.
I grew up in Fairmont, West Virginia until fourth grade, and then moved to Oakton, Virginia. So I've been like in the DC metro area since fourth grade. Went away to Michigan State for college, and
Okay.
then came back to the DC area and been here since 1996. So Yeah.
Yeah, I was born in Huntington, West Virginia, so I don't meet
Oh, wow.
many mountaineers very often, at least in my part. So, and kind of the same way, we lived in that area, I think until I was 2 or 3, and that
Okay.
was about it. So,
Okay. Yeah,
but
that makes
yeah,
sense.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the more recent stuff too. And I have a great love of the Appalachian Trail. I've done different sections of it, backpacking. Also, friends with several people that have pursued different things on the trail. Jennifer Farr Davis being one of the first. I was in school at UNC with her husband, Brew, who's a great guy. He's done several things himself too. But this kind of aura around the AT is pretty unique from what I understand, and different than the PCT or the Continental Divide Trail or any other long distance trails. So, what was it about the AT that had you locked into wanting to knock an FKT on it? And maybe tell me a little bit about some of the experience of being out there.
Yeah, I found the trail when I was 16 years old. I went out to Shenandoah National Park with my buddy Ethan Merlin, and we were camping out there. And I remember we stayed like right off the Appalachian Trail, like we had hiked in on the trail, and he said like, "Oh, this trail goes to Maine," and I was just like blew my mind. It was like one of those things where I had never heard of it, and I was fascinated. And I think even during that trip, I said like someday I'm going to do the whole thing, and I think he
Mm.
just kind of laughed at me. But that was, like 34 years ago, I think. So that was 34, 40. Yeah. So I did it when I was 50. So it took me that long. I kept being like, "Oh, I'll do it when I get fired from my job, or I quit." And I haven't been fired, and now I'm the owner of the company. So basically, I had to fire myself for a couple months and go off into the woods. But yeah, I don't know. There's something magical about the Appalachian Trail, the history of it, the passion that people have for it. I love that, I'm an East Coast boy. So, like, it's East Coast mountains. And, I've been all over the world on all 7 continents. And I would say the Appalachian Trail is as tough or tougher than most of the places I've ever been. So, yeah, I just thought like I wanted to see if I was going to spend my time and energy on a long trail. I had two goals. One was to run across the United States, and I did that in 2022. And the other goal was to run the Appalachian Trail, and I did that in 2024. So, I wanted to do those things. And I thought like, oh, I'll probably, you know, move on to something else after I've done those. And I will tell you, there's still a lot left to do in different running pursuits, and I still love running. It's still my first love, and it's weird. I still think of myself as a lacrosse player that runs, but I've had way more success as a runner, and been a runner longer than I ever played lacrosse. So it is funny how, you think of yourself one way, but I think other people might think of me, as a runner first.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
now I think of myself more as like just like an endurance athlete. Like I like to do, big things that involve moving my body for long periods of time. But, I also like to just go out and like slam a local 5K or mile race. So
So
yeah,
as fast as you can.
yeah, there was something so fun in last weekend about just hammering with people for, as far, for a marathon. Like
Hmm.
it's not a short distance. It's not like one of the longer events that I do, but I feel like it's kind of the perfect distance because it's just far enough where you can't just hammer the whole time, but you can be pretty close to hammering the whole time, and it really pushes you in a good way. But then
I
like the
mean,
next day, you're like not terribly destroyed. Although I would say like actually this time I felt like 2 days later I had like a creeper like fatigue from the marathon.
yeah. So, I mean, at this point, I would imagine you have a pretty good tune in with your body and what it's telling you. Is there much you have to do for going into these races at this point for training or nutrition or anything during the race specifically?
I mean, I think that, yeah, it's always evolving. I mean, I think I have a pretty set, like I take a goo every 4 miles, and that seems to work really well for me to maintain like my energy levels and nutrition for a marathon. But that's not to say like I wouldn't change if there was something that came along that would be better. I just know like, oh, that seems to work pretty well for me. But yeah, I mean, I think everything is always evolving, and it might be, I do something different, or if it also depends on the conditions. That was like pretty nice, like, and cool. So it was less than 60 degrees Fahrenheit. But on a hotter day, I might have to take in more electrolytes and maybe bring some fluids or have more access to fluids or take more cups along the course. Or if I didn't like what they had, like I would make sure that I had what I needed. But yeah, I mean, I think it's always evolving, and it just also depends on like the heat and how my training's gone.
Did you change any of that with these longer distances, like spending the time on the Appalachian Trail?
Oh yeah, I mean, for the Appalachian Trail, you're just trying to eat as much as you possibly can. Like, I'm trying to get in between like 8,000 and 10,000 calories, and that's just
my gosh.
Yeah, it's just a huge amount of volume. And so like I was lucky I had my crew chief Sharon. She was really, really good at like being able to sneak calories and stuff, and lots of like stuff that was easy to eat. Like she would make like these smoothies that were like 1,500 calories, so you could eat that really quick, not a lot of chewing, and get in a lot of calories. So I was able to stay up on my weight, which is a big thing, and then energy levels, and then just like, yeah, it just becomes like part of like, it's your job to eat. Like, and it's not fun. It seems like it'd be great because you're like, oh, I can eat whatever I want, but you do not want to. Yeah. So yeah, and it was like eating a lot of stuff like I normally never eat. Like she got me to eat like candy, and I like, that's not like part of my normal like routine. But then also like, yeah, like she would make these like crazy like super healthy smoothies, and like, yeah, and it's hard too being vegan, like trying to like get enough calories that, and the food choices are more limited when you're in more remote areas. But shout out to Walmart for having like more vegan food than most people would think. So
yeah, I would not think that, but you got Walmart probably within a few miles of many points of the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah, it's shocking like how many Walmarts there are, and like how many good options they have for like Beyond Meat, like vegan cheeses, like just like super calorie rich, dense foods that you need when you're burning that many calories.
Do you find that you have to supplement with anything else above and beyond your diet with being so specific?
I don't really. I feel like I do blood work from every now and then just to make sure that I'm not deficient in anything. And I've had some things that I've had to like be more careful with or work on, but I feel like that's just like anybody. Like everybody has something that they can make a little bit better. And so I'm just trying to, tweak things to get it as good as it can be.
Back to the AT, are there any sections that you particularly loved and any sections that you just were like, I don't ever want to do that again?
Actually, I loved it all. So like I would say some highlights for me were Virginia, like that's where I grew up and was born. And it's also like one of the bigger sections. I think it's like a fourth of the trail is in Virginia, but it's just something about, crossing the line into your home state that's pretty magical. And just knowing that these are the trails that I've run and grew up on. I'd say I love the White Mountains. I think they're just super rugged and intense, and like they have real consequences. Like I thought I was going to die up there because I didn't take like I was up there with not enough kit and I couldn't see where I was going, and people die up there all the time. And I was like, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be like one of those idiots that like they're like, oh, unprepared hiker dead because they were dumb. But I love the mountains there. I love the culture in the Whites. I think Maine is just beautiful. Like it's just one of the states that everyone thinks of Maine as like, I don't know, maple syrup or like Maine and Vermont is like, this, trees and foliage and stuff, but it's just got real mountains, and it's just I don't know, stunningly like beautiful, and just like the most epic sunrises and sunsets. I would say there were some sections that I thought would not be as cool as they were. Like I was really impressed with how beautiful New Jersey was. Like that was like actually one of my favorite moments was at the high point in New Jersey, which is like only 1,300 feet or something, but it was like called Sunrise or something. And like you were above the clouds somehow. And like you're just looking over like this sea of clouds. It was, I don't know, it was shockingly beautiful. So like, yeah, I was impressed mostly with how much beauty there was in places that you wouldn't expect it.
Yeah. So by the time you're going southbound, and so by the time
Correct.
you hit the North Carolina, Tennessee, and then into Georgia,
Yep.
Were you ready to be done at that point, or did you feel pretty good?
Oh, I felt great. Like I feel like with most of these things, I get stronger as it goes. I think the first 2 weeks are usually the roughest, and then once you can kind of get through those initial like getting your body used to the volume and the time on feet and just like being exhausted, like you really find a good flow. And that's where I really love being, is like living in that, just like this is what I do now. This is like my life. It's just such a great feeling. Like it's like if I just do these things, like the miles and kilometers are gonna just tick off, but also like I'm just gonna get to see like huge swaths of like the countryside
on
and
your
it's just
own 2 feet, which is
yeah,
awesome.
exactly. Yeah. And there's just something beautiful about like all I got to do is just keep moving forward, and like I'm gonna get to see Sharon, get to see my family, get to see like all these things. And yeah, there's a beautiful simplicity in that movement, and just like knowing what is coming up and what you don't actually know what's coming up. I mean, you can look at the like far out guide or something, and I usually didn't look. Like I would be like, oh, I got 10,000 or 15,000 feet of climbing today, but it would be more like I'll see Sharon in like 4 hours, or I don't know, 20 miles or whatever it is. And then I'm just going to be out here doing my thing for the rest of the time. And I don't know, there's something simple and beautiful about just all I got to do is just keep moving, looking for the blazes, and good things will happen.
That's really cool. Did you have any injuries while you were out there?
Oh my God, yeah. Let's see. I dislocated my left wrist and it broke my right hand.
In a fall, I'm
assuming. Yeah. I mean, you fall so much, like even if you're super careful, like I don't know, you get caught on a branch or you slip on a piece of wet rock or whatever. But I also got so lucky, man. I fell a couple times where I would have been 100% concussed, but my Nathan backpack was full of so much crap, like it stopped me from like smacking my head. I broke a bunch. I broke like 6 pairs of, or no, not six. That's an exaggeration. 4 pairs of carbon fiber poles.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Which is funny. I was like, oh, I only need like 1 pair, and I was like, I should probably bring another pair. I never break those things, and then like I broke so many. Yeah, and then just like the normal stuff, like my feet were actually pretty good most of the time, but like I was very careful about like changing socks and shoes pretty much every time I came into the car. So that I think that really helped, and just being proactive with like if I had a niggle or something, like to try to take care of it before it became a big problem.
Yeah. So I just did an interview the other day with a guy that has a company called Trail Toes, and basically he creates these gels that for feet or other body parts to kind of keep the chafing and blisters and all the issues. And it really started for him out of, well, if you don't take care of your feet, you're not going to finish the race, no matter what you're doing. What kind of self-care in these kind of long distances do you focus on?
Oh, it's definitely your feet. I mean, like, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, is, if you have a blister, take care of it. I was using the KT, like, blister patches, and then I would wrap it with KT tape. And that actually stays, like, if you put it on like an hour before you need to start sweating or anything, then it'll stay on. Sometimes it would stay on for days. Like, so yeah, that's like a really nice product that works really well. But yeah, it was mostly like making sure your feet are okay. And then I would say when I was running across the country, it was making sure you put on sunscreen, just because like having sun, like I forgot one, like the first week, and I had like a red band around my ankles between my calf sleeves and sock where I forgot to put it on, and it just like scorched the earth of my.
Oh,
So I was just like dealing with like blistered skin, and so like it's like a small thing that takes like a couple seconds, but I would always like I had like a checklist with like both things. It'd be like, do you have your phone? Do you have your tracker? Did you put sunscreen on? And then it would just go down the list, and it'd be for the Appalachian Trail after I got caught in that storm. It would be like, do you have a raincoat? Do you have gloves? Do you have a hat? Like, do you have your poncho? Like, and I would just make sure that I always had that. And yeah, I think like just, yeah, making sure that you're mindful and you have what you need. And it would always be like, and then I ran out of food a couple of times. So then I'd always have like an emergency like stash of like calories, like that I would just carry in case I have an extra 1,500 calories just in case, or in case like you miss like, they're going to try to be somewhere and the road's closed or
yeah.
something.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that, and definitely, well, I guess you would have gone, did you go through there before or after the hurricanes hit North Carolina?
I got caught in the Hurricane Helene.
You were
So I had,
in? Wow.
well, yeah, I had to get off the trail that was why instead of 50 days, I ended up with like 60 days as I got caught in a couple of hurricanes, and then I had to work for 7 days. So yeah, so I was still working full time while doing the Appalachian Trail. So like there were times where I had deadlines where I had to get off and help with the job. So yeah, but one of the times
about
was
that in a
yeah.
minute, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like Hurricane Helene. I got off in Franklin. I think it's Franklin, Tennessee, maybe, or Virginia.
Franklin, North Carolina.
North Carolina, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we were there for like a day and a half, and then I was able to get back on the trail, but it was just completely wrecked, like with down trees and like widowmakers and stuff. So then I was just spending so much time like going up and over and under, like, yeah, it was brutal. I'm shocked at how much they did to clean it up, because I know, people have had, pretty nice runs and hikes this year. So like that's also what's so cool about the AT is like how many volunteers and people like take care of it and maintain it.
Yeah, I guess if you had been a little bit earlier, and for instance, like in Virginia when that hit, there were long sections through northern part of Tennessee and North Carolina that were until just the last few months were still closed down after that hurricane went through.
Exactly. Yeah, I got lucky in that like the trail that I still had to do, I had about 120 miles left to go, was still open and it didn't wash out, but like literally like a day before or something, like that whole part of the trail that I had run was completely washed out. And Tara got super, like she was on the trail the same time as me, and she finished like 10 days before me, and she started like 10 days after me. That's how she got her 40 days. But like she got so lucky, like she was able to miss the whole hurricane. So like that made a big difference for her. So she just like got really lucky with the weather window she had, which was great. Like I'm glad that she was able to make it out of there in time.
Did you guys overlap anywhere on the trail?
We did. Yeah, we got to, well, she was chasing me for like, I don't know, 30 days or something. So like I would move forward and then she would get a little bit closer. And then, I was doing, I don't know, 35 or 40 to 50 miles, and she was doing like 57 to 60 miles. So she would make up like 7 or 10 miles every day. So eventually she caught me.
Gotcha.
We got to overlap. It was fun. Eventually we were like, my crew was coming in, and like her massive like posse was like all trying to get to the same trailheads, which was cool. And then we got to do a couple sections together, and she was just crushing. It was awesome. Impressive. Yeah.
So you guys finished around the same time then?
No, she was like 10 or so days ahead of me. So I got stuck in the hurricane, and she had finished right before the hurricane. And then it took me a couple days to get to the end.
Gotcha. So talk to me a little bit about running your business while you're doing all these things, because again, just to be clear, you're not a professional only runner. You've got a full-time day job and a family and other things that take your interests away. So how does that work?
Yeah, I'm a international shipbroker. We do humanitarian food aid cargo going all over the world. And I mean, it works like, I have a cell phone that can pretty much work anywhere. And then I have a great team. It's actually my buddy Mark and Keith that I work with. And so when I'm out, they try to help cover as much of the stuff that I do as possible. And then if there's stuff that I need to jump in on, I do, or, there's too much volume and they need me to help, then I just stop.
Stop
Like,
what you're doing.
yeah, I basically stopped what I did because we had like the biggest tender we've ever had. And I got off the trail for like 5 days and helped get everything in and get us some business and help our clients. And then, I try to bring, them, their, as much a part of what I'm doing as, what I'm, my other my sponsors and, like Teva and Backline and I don't know, Goo and all the people that help me. But I want to get everybody involved as much as possible. And yeah, it's cool. Like the people I work with all know that I have this like vocation outside of, being a shipbroker where I get to run around the world and do cool, crazy stuff. And luckily they follow me. And, if it's something that they need, they just call me wherever I am, and that's just how it works. And, it's something I love to do. And so I'm so happy that I get to be able to toggle between the two different worlds.
Yeah, that is pretty cool to have that kind of setup and be able to really have the best of both, right?
Well, or like as good as possible, right? Like I mean, like I know a lot of the professional athletes that it seems like a pretty awesome life. Like my friend Erin, who's another Teva athlete, she's going to like Nepal and getting to like run the same route like 50 times until she figures out what the best route is for her FKT, right? Or, she's able to go cache food in the mountains of Colorado for her Nolan's attempt. And like, I have a fair amount of time, but I don't have like, time where I can, a lot of times when I do a FKT, it's the first time that I've ever like seen the route. And I'm just like, following it on my tracker, like trying to figure out where I need to go. And she knows like, oh, I go 5 feet to the left, I'll see the squirrel that's, been there for a month and like we're buddies and I'll throw him, so like there's differences in that, or like, being able to come back and take a nap, after your, workout. But I mean, I have nothing to complain about. I have a really, really nice setup and my family's super supportive. Yeah, we've been really lucky and I feel super fortunate that, I do get to do, all the things I love to do as much as I like.
I interview many people that I've interviewed have families or parents. And so it's interesting to talk about where these hobbies or vocations turn into family legacy, meaning like, well, the kids kind of get into it or the kids don't get into it. The kids want nothing to do with this. I read recently that your son, and I believe you ran with him in the Marine Corps marathon. Is that correct?
Yeah, man, it was almost a year ago this week. So yeah, Pierce and I ran Marine Corps last year. It was his first marathon. It was also my first marathon like 30 some years ago. So that was really cool legacy. But it was also just cool to see him set a goal and then go out and do it. Like, the year before that, we had run the Baltimore half marathon. He ran cross country and track and was a pole vaulter in high school. And now he's continuing to run at University at William and Mary for their club team. So it's really cool to see him be so engaged in it. But our other son, Grant, is picking up like my lacrosse. So that's awesome too. So like we've been out shooting and like getting him ready for the season. And then he does ultimate frisbee, which is a sport that I never did, but I wish I would have known about it.
Yeah.
Because it is like a very, very cardio intense sport with like a lot more action than you would think. So like I really have loved to see him get into that and like have success and be a good, I don't know. I just like to see them, having something that they're passionate about and they like doing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. The only time I ever played ultimate frisbee, it was like intramural stuff in college, and it was, a blast.
Yeah.
But it's all out, man. I mean,
yeah, It's just wind sprints, like 100 million wind sprints. And then you're like, oh, it should be so easy to knock this frisbee down, and then you just can't reach it, or the guy snatches it out of your hand, and you're like, wow, I thought I had that. So yeah, I've only played a couple times, and I was like, oh crap, man, this is like way more intense than I thought, but it's also good fun.
Well, in our last few minutes here, tell me a little bit about what it was like running across the country. So Marshall Ulrich, kind of a early guy that made the attempt, read his books, watched, documentaries on him. Lisa Smith Batchen, who's another ultra runner, I interviewed her recently. She attempted it, didn't. I believe she came down with gallstones at some point, but some injury that took her off. And, so there's been multiple people that have attempted, some have accomplished and not. But tell me a little bit about what took you towards that and what that experience was like.
Oh man, it was something that I learned about. I watched Forrest Gump and I saw that, oh, you can do this. And like, I was like, oh, I'm going to do that someday. And again, it took me forever. Mostly I was afraid of traffic. And I eventually, I just did a talk for a company, and it was like, and the way I described it is I wanted to do the thing more than I wanted to be afraid of all the things that could happen. So like, I eventually, like, I was like, yeah, I might get hit by a car, but I want to do this more than I want to be afraid. And so that's how I looked at it, was like, I've wanted to do this for so long. I didn't have the time, but I made the time. So like you were saying, like, how did I make it work with what I do as a job? Is I hired a guy 2 years before I was going to go for the Transcon. And then he and I worked together and we trained together. And so I basically got him ready to be able to do anything that I could do. And then he helped me be able to do it, in that, he would handle all the things that I was working on. And if there was something that we needed to collaborate on, we would, and I would just stop. And that was basically what the deal was with our company and clients, was like, we're going to keep you guys covered, but if there's anything or I need to stop at any time, I will. And so, I set everything in place. And then as far as like, we live right on Route 50 here in like Northern Virginia. And I found a route that goes from Sacramento to Ocean City. And so I basically ran Route 50 all the way from where I live. I ran from Sacramento. So I wanted to start in San Francisco just because I've like loved that city. And I don't think there's anything more iconic on the West Coast than the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. Like, I just
for sure
think that's like, to me, like, screams like, I don't know, even more than Santa Monica Pier or something, like, as like a landmark that to me felt special. And I've won the marathon in San Francisco. I love the San Francisco marathon people. Like, I just thought, oh, this would be such a cool place to start. And I have like a history with like running races in the Marin Headlands. And I don't know, it was like where I wanted to start. And so I started at City Hall in San Francisco, and I didn't but I also like wanted to be authentic and go from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. And then, so City Hall, like, you could actually just go right over to Golden Gate Bridge and then go on your way to Sacramento. But I had to run 10K the wrong way to get to the Pacific Ocean. So I went City Hall, San Francisco, 10K ocean. The wrong way to the ocean, dipped my feet in the ocean with my crew and everybody. And then we went back the right way. So I don't know. Sometimes I think like, I don't know, you want to do things the right way and you have in your head how it's going to work. And like, that was, I think, the right way to do it, but also like not the most efficient way. But as far as like the trip itself, like it was everything I hoped it would be. Like, I saw the country in a way that not many people have seen the country. I got to see parts of the country that other people don't ever see, like parts of Nevada. Like, it's called America's Loneliest Highway. And it is sparsely populated and highly beautiful, and you can literally be running for like 50 miles and see like where you're going to finish for the day, and it like never seems like it's getting closer. And it was like an outdoor treadmill. And then I did have all the experiences with like, people throwing stuff at me, people honking, people like, stopping to offer me water. Like, I had a wide range of experiences with good and bad and everything in between. And yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world. And it made me grow as a person, and my capacity to know that I could handle those kind of distances like applies to every aspect of life. And I just feel so grateful that I was able to like do it, and that my body held out, and that my family and friends and the companies that support me were willing to give me the opportunity.
That's pretty great, pretty awesome description of that. And I think have one other, and you can answer this somewhat quickly before I throw you the last one to wrap us up. But how do you take care of your body doing all this stuff? How do you manage the load that you put on it to still stay healthy enough to continue doing it?
I mean, I think like I'm lucky that I have been pretty injury free. I think I work with a personal trainer, a guy named Jesse Fuller, 2 times a week. And then my buddy Tom Merhofer and I do like a CrossFit type strength training routine, like 3 or 4 times a week. I think that really helps on top of like my daily mileage. I'm also like now I do a lot of pickleball, which I think is good because runners are mostly moving like forward, whereas like pickleball, you're moving like all different directions. Yeah. So like, I think it's actually really a good compliment, but also like, it's just fun for me. I just find it fun, but all of a sudden you look down and you're like, oh, I've been playing for like 4 hours. Like, this is amazing.
Oh, wow.
And so I think that, and then I work in like rowing and cycling, but I think like just managing like the mileage, like I just did a thing for a project for a sponsor. They were asking like my yearly mileage, and I'd say like I do a fair amount of mileage, and I think it's over like 130,000 lifetime miles. So I think like that just allows you to know what you're capable of. But sometimes like it'll be like a 50-mile week, other times it'll be like 150-mile week, and I think like being able to like toggle between those is, I think, good for your body. Like you have some weeks that are bigger and then other weeks that are less, and then just mixing everything in as much as possible. But I think like just staying active, like I don't usually plan like full breaks. Like if I am not running, I'm doing some other activity. And I think that really helps, is like staying in motion.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I think for anybody listening to this, a lot of these adventure pursuits that anybody's doing is about keeping your body in motion. And a lot of good things come from that, not only the experiences, but what you're able to get your body to do and stay healthy. And so my last question to you is, of all the things that you've done, long distance trails, marathons on different continents, what is it that these adventures have taught you about humanity in general and about yourself?
I think about humanity in general. I think like just seeing the world through travel and through these experiences is like everybody pretty much wants the same for their family and for themselves. Is like they want to feel safe. They want to like be able to provide for their family. They want to be able to be in a safe place. And like, I think that it doesn't matter like what religion you are, or what color you are. Like, yeah, it's just like a human condition. And then I think for myself, I'd say, I think we're all, and it seems like super cliche, but I think we're all capable of a lot more than we think we are. And yeah, if you just keep doing the small things, the big things will take care of themselves. So like, you focus on what you can control, and then you put yourself in the best possible position. And a lot of times good things will happen if you do those things. Oh, I will say one other thing that I've started doing. I've done 100 burpees a day for 100 days. I'm not at the finish. I'm at like day like 81 or 82 now, I think. And so like, I think that has made a huge difference in just like my overall strength. Like I am so much stronger than when I started on like July 27th than I am now, October 22nd. And it's like, it's something every day that like has made a huge difference. And I think it only takes like, if I do it super slow, it takes like 15 minutes. The fastest I've ever done it is like 7 minutes, but it's somewhere between those two things. And it's like just hard enough that you're like, ooh, I don't know if I really want to do it. But every time you do it, you're like, oh, I'm so proud of myself for doing it. So like, I don't know, it doesn't have to be 100 burpees, but it could be something that you do every day that you see results stack, right? Like, and I think that's just being consistent. Like that's where you see the biggest gains.
That, and what you just said too is really a great frame of doing any of these things. You can get to the other side and go, I'm really proud of myself. Like,
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And not in a prideful kind of way, but in a really healthy, supportive, like that was a great thing that I just did. That's cool.
Yeah. Although like it was funny, I was joking with my friend today, like I hit like a really nice shot and I go, damn, that was a good shot. I was like, oh, Mike is very proud of himself. Yeah. Like, wow. I just feel like I'm so surprised, like when I hit like a really, really good, like I'm so impressed by how when other people, like I just feel like they always hit good shots, the guys that and girls that I'm playing with, like when I actually hit one myself, I'm like, wow, that was amazing. Yeah. Wow, I didn't know I could do that. So like, yeah, but I think, yeah, you gotta, you know, be cognizant of when you do something good. And then the same goes for like when you screw something up, you got to own it. Right.
Yeah. And I'm sure that comes into play with any of these endurance feats that you go through. Is it sounds like you've got a pretty good reality talk and a pretty good self-talk also, like the things that you do to encourage yourself. And I think you got to have both.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, and yeah, if you mess it up, it's like, no matter what happens, it's kind of on you. Right. So like, that's where, yeah, you have to take ownership.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I'm going to let you get off here and either get back to shipping containers or whatever your next exercise is.
All right, man.
But man, this has been awesome. I really appreciate your generosity to jump on here and do this. And you finish this row across the Atlantic and we'll be talking again.
That'd be great, man. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the On Adventure podcast. Be on the lookout for another episode dropping in a couple weeks. And be sure to go to our YouTube page and subscribe and follow us there, as well as on all the socials from Facebook to Instagram and LinkedIn. Until our next episode, I hope you stay safe and stay on adventure.